Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation, this important nation, to audit all gold refineries in a major crackdown on illicit gold trading. Let's explore! Indeed, this is news, big news, folks, as shared with me by the member of the community, because gold is the metal that people have fought wars over, and people have broken laws over, and people will do just about anything to get it, it seems, and it's traded in one nation many more than others. Essentially, this nation is known as really essentially the gold hub of the world, and that nation is the United Arab Emirates. Their gold trade is done. There's a lot of trading that happens in Dubai, a city in the United Arab Emirates. And we're going to talk a little bit about this from a story that is broken from mining.com. The UAE is to audit all gold refineries in a crackdown on illicit trade. The United Arab Emirates will require all gold refineries to undergo annual audits to ensure their suppliers are responsible, it told Reuters, in an effort to combat illicit trading. Industry figures said that this should raise standards in the United Arab Emirates, one of the world's biggest bullion trade hubs, but may also shift flows of gold linked to crime or human rights abuses to other countries. For example, in Africa, where the number of gold refineries is growing rapidly. A Reuters investigation in 2019 found that the United Arab Emirates took in gold worth billions of dollars smuggled from Africa, some of it mined in grim and polluting conditions in countries in conflict. Organizations including the Financial Action Task Force and Intergovernmental Anti-Money Laundering Monitor are pressing the country to tighten rules and enforcement. The UAE has said doing so is a national priority. The UAE's economy ministry told Reuters a UAE good delivery standard would require refiners to properly scrutinize suppliers and prove to outside auditors they have done so. All gold refiners will be required to adhere to the responsible sourcing obligations, it said. The UAE Good Delivery Standard will also require annual compliance audits. The ministry said its goal was to bring the whole industry in line with responsible sourcing standards. It declined to comment further before an announcement at a precious metals industry conference in Dubai later this month. And you think about it, if we see the illicit trade happen more in Africa, with those refineries growing in that market, well, it just means that probably there will be the gold that you buy there and the gold that you buy in the UAE. And more than likely, there will be people that have gold that you can trust that's not blood gold or illicit trade from environmental conditions and dangerous conditions for workers. Millions of people work in these small-scale gold mines that can be brutal on workers and leak toxic chemicals. The metal is often used to refine crime, conflict, and terrorism, to finance the crime, conflict, and terrorism, and especially when you think about illicit chemicals, well, or dangerous chemicals like mercury, and also there's also another chemical that's used that is very deadly, and I forget the name of it offhand, but then that is used to kind of refine it out of the cyanide. I think it's cyanide that's used. The FATF last month placed Turkey on its gray list, potentially eroding foreign investment, due in part to serious issues of supervision in its gold trade. And we know Turkey is a big gold country, and for sure. Last year, the London Bullion Market Association, which runs the biggest responsible sourcing accreditation scheme for refineries, said it could stop refiners it certifies from taking gold from countries with inadequate controls. UAE said it had taken numerous measures to combat illicit trading, including requirements for firms to register with anti-money laundering authorities and declare large cash transactions. The gold and precious metals industry is core to our economy, UAE Minister of State for Foreign Trade Thani Al-Zayodai, who chairs a committee overseeing the gold trade, said in a statement to Reuters. The good delivery standard will further strengthen the UAE's AML CFT anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism framework, which is a critical national priority and a central focus of the UAE leadership, Al-Zayodai said. UAE said its standard was an extension of the Dubai Good Delivery Standard, a voluntary accreditation scheme run by the Dubai Multi-Commodities Center, a UAE free trade zone. DMCC accredits 2 of UAE's more than 10 refiners, requiring responsible sourcing policies and audits. Most UAE gold refiners and dealers lack accreditation for outside scrutiny of how and where they get their gold. This is the most significant thing the UAE government have done to stop unethical trade, said Tyler Gillard, who advises governments and companies on responsible sourcing at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But illicit trading will not disappear, he said. It's like squeezing a balloon. There's still enough gaps and opportunities in other countries for gold to enter the market. Most countries do not require sourcing audits. Dozens of refineries are operating or under construction in sub-Saharan Africa and India, a big importer of gold from small-scale mines, has many refiners not subject to scrutiny. And by the way, being able to do those audits may be more difficult even for some legitimate smaller refineries. And here we can see an article from earlier this year in Tanzania. President Samia launches a $5.2 million gold refinery. And the president of the United Republic of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has instituted the Mwanza Precious Metal Refinery, gold refinery worth $5.2 million. And so there you can see, here's an example of one. Now, will this be a legitimate enterprise? Hopefully so. We'll definitely see how this plays out. But this is an example of potentially being one that could meet the standards for trade in Dubai, or they may be a part of the African gold trade. And if they're legitimate, they may be tied in with a bunch of illegitimate or poisonous gold refineries that are breaking the law and or part of the illicit trade, and maybe they'll be treated unfairly because they'll be part of that network. But they're just trying to make do. We'll see how it plays out, but that is the one aspect that should be a concern. But there we go. We'll see what happens. It is something else. Gold is something that has intrigued mankind for thousands of years, and again, there's potential for it to be abused and how it's acquired. But it is fascinating to see, and I think it's exciting. I think it's good news to see that there will be audits. But there probably should be flexibility with some of the smaller refiners who are trying their best to work under the in the most responsible and ethical way possible. But nonetheless, there you have it. I guess there's going to be some good news from this, but also some troubling news in other areas too, because it sounds like it may create another arm for legitimate refiners to work in unethical regions, where most of those they could be given a bad name if they're going with the less regulated areas. But nonetheless, there it is. Fascinating news indeed. This could have an effect on the gold price, as Dubai is a major trading hub, but it is essentially for a lot of different types of gold, such as you see here. I mean, we're talking anywhere between 18 to 24 karat gold jewelry you're looking at right before your very eyes that is traded there. That's most of what you would find in a SEEK. And there it is, an example of what one looks like. Pretty major area there. We go down that hall and find all these gold shops. Boy, it would be a dream to go there. There's members of this community who have actually visited these, such as International Stacker, 24K, Arabia Phoenix, and others who have been here have seen what it's like to trade gold in Dubai. and of course in other areas of the Middle East as well too, where gold from the Middle East through the Far East, gold has a cultural significance as well. Fascinating indeed. So there you have it. Very interesting, and thanks again to the anonymous member of the community who sent me this information. And I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.